Hello, and welcome to today's story. If you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more. The story you're about to hear is based on accounts and rumors. Its full truth can't be confirmed. Now sit back, relax, and let's dive right in. Throwaway, because my coworkers know my main, and I don't need this story turning into a group chat joke. If you live in my city and recognize the route, do yourself a favor and don't ride it after midnight. I work the kind of closing shift that makes your days feel stapled together. Wrong. Grocery nights, mostly produce and freezer, so I leave when the air outside smells like wet cardboard, and cut fruit in the sidewalks belong to the last smokers and the first joggers. I never learned to drive. Buses are how I get home. It's a habit, a budget line, and a small private point of pride that I can sleep anywhere except a moving vehicle. My route is simple. Westbound on the 12 to the transfer, then the 7 up the hill to my apartment. The 11:30 is the last 7 that runs often enough to pretend it's still day. Miss that and you're bargaining with a timetable that resents you. The night this started, I missed it by a block. I watched the 7 pull away from the stop like it knew I was there, like it had been timing the light just to spite me. Big white back end gliding past, red brake lights giving me one polite last chance, and then winking out. I jogged, shoulders up, bag banging my hip, because it's what you do even when you know it won't matter. I got to the stop under the yellow glow with my breath fogging and the shelter it offering me a vacation I couldn't afford. Next bus, 12 a.m. Those 30 minutes stretched. The city gets low at that hour. Fewer cars, more sounds. A far siren, a bottle clink from the alley, the heater in the shelter coughing dust. The cold wasn't bite your face. It was the kind that sinks into your wrists and stays. I watched a guy clip tie posters to a pole with his headphones in, and the sort of dance you do when you aren't being watched. I watched the corner store owner mop in slow circles like he had all of time. When the bus came, it came alone. I don't mean there were no people waiting to get off. That's usual sometimes. I mean, the bus arrived like a stage set rolling into place in an empty theater. It hissed, kneeling for a passenger who wasn't there, and the doors folded open on silence. No one stood. No one filed past me mumbling thanks. Just the driver, mid-50s, face like a man who has played a lot of night hands of solitaire, staring out at nothing in particular. He flicked eyes at me, not unkind. I tapped my card and said, "Hey," with that smallness you adopt around people who could make this night worse without meaning to. I sat 2 rows behind the yellow line because I've been lectured by drivers before and have no appetite for another. The bus groaned and pulled out. Fluorescents hummed. The heaters made their dry, worked too hard breath. My window showed me a slice of my own face and the world beyond. A pawn shop closed for years. A mural I'd watched go from bright to just memory. The driver kept his gaze forward in that military way bus drivers have of seeing everything without turning their heads. And then I glanced at the mirror. All buses have that rectangular rear view propped like a floating TV up by the windshield, angled to give the driver eyes in the back of their head. Your brain learns to ignore it. Mine didn't. Not that night. In the mirror, the rows behind me were full like weekday rush hour, when the bus smells like damp coats and other people's shampoo. Full like heads and shoulders and hunched spines and winter hats and the soft rise and fall of people who have fought for a seat and won. Men, women, kids, someone in a parka with fur, someone with a bike helmet still on, a woman holding a tote bag to her chest like a shield. I turned my head, my eyes slid along empty vinyl. The bus was as empty as it had felt when the doors opened. No coats, no hats, just seats and the learned suggestion of other bodies that upholstery holds after years of work. Back to the mirror? Full? I laughed once, a reflex, the way you laugh when a dog jumps up on you and your shirt is already dirty. Glare. It had to be glare. Reflections get weird at night. The mirror was showing me some overlap of our bus with another bus on another street, or a lighting quirk, or something. I told myself that and watched my breath fog the glass and fade and come back when I exhaled through my nose without meaning to. The driver spoke without turning his head. "Don't look too long," he said, flat, almost gentle, like he was telling a kid to stop staring at someone's scar. They get hopeful. I didn't realize I was gripping my bag strap until my fingers hurt. "What is it?" I asked, because that is the first lie you tell yourself. If you can categorize something, you can manage it. "Spaces," he said, like he was bored with the word. "Empties. We've all got to go somewhere when a seat frees up." Eyes forward. I tried to look anywhere but the mirror. My hands. My knees. The "See Something, Say Something" poster that has had graffiti removed so many times the paper shines. The route map that someone has scratched a phone number into with a key. The green glow of my card reader. My body didn't believe me. My eyes kept flicking up. Every time they did, a few of the faces were turned a little more toward me. I couldn't make their details or ages, like someone had drawn them with the heel of their hand and smudged. Edges were soft. Mouths were straight. Eyes were the shape of eyes and the size of eyes and in the place eyes should be, but too flat, too pooled, like they were made of the same light the overheads buzzed out. The bus crossed the river. The water down there takes on all the stray light of the city and tries to pretend it's a better sky. There were no other cars on the bridge, just us and the wind nudging the bus a little and my heart doing that small bird thing. When it sees a window it thinks is open. We came to the next stop. I pulled the cord, stupidly, the way you slap a mosquito when you know it's not going to help the itch. The bell dinged our ding. The driver slowed. The doors folded open and outside there was nothing. Imagine a street after a blackout. Remove the silhouettes of buildings. Remove the shine of wet pavement. Remove the foul, familiar smell of the river you always notice right there. What remained wasn't blackness, like the inside of a coat or a movie theater. Before the trailer, it was absence. No depth, no sound, no wrong smell, no anything. Like the world had been peeled back and someone forgot to put anything else behind it, and the bus had accidentally pulled up to the edge of the set. The driver did not look over. He did not say, "Last stop." He did not clear his throat. He watched the road ahead, a road that wasn't there, and kept both hands on the wheel, thumbs along the seam like a man resigned to a measurement. I did not move. The doors sighed shut. The bus pulled out into a place my brain could say was a street again. A second later, a newspaper box, a fire hydrant that always looks too small to me to be useful, a streetlight humming at an insect pitch. My breath came back like I had been underwater for a minute. I stayed on until we crossed back into neighborhoods with stoops and the good house on the block with the porch string lights up year-round. At my stop, the bus knelt and the driver dipped his head an inch. That politeness that means either go ahead or I see you. As I stepped down, I looked back to say thanks. He flicked his eyes at the rear view, then at me. "Last run," he said. "Don't make me do it again." At my apartment, I leaned against the door after I locked it like an actor in a sitcom who'd had a day. My kitchen clock read 12:27. I stared at the blank TV screen for a long time. Reflections don't reflect right at night. That is a rule. You accept it and get on with living. But I didn't sleep. At 3, my body remembered the bus mirror. At 4, I reminded myself of physics. At 6, after 2 hours pretending to read, I said it out loud in the bathroom to the mirror that doesn't lie. Not often. It was glare. I walked to work the next day because walking makes your brain think it's in charge. By night, I had convinced myself enough to do it again. That's the thing about routine. It's a handle you grip without looking. I made the 11:30 this time. Our bus was half full. Students, a nurse, an old guy, with a grocery bag of only oranges. When I looked at the mirror, it reflected us properly with the mean little distortions mirrors have always had. I felt stupid for my fear, like I'd made a big devotional over nothing. The driver was a different man. Young, easy shoulders, humming to something only he could hear. I watched him more than the mirror all the way home, just to prove that I could. 2 nights later, I hit the same delay with an overtime freezer unload, skin burning, toes numb, and missed the 11:30 again. I stood under that yellow shelter light telling myself to order a ride and drop $15 I didn't have on the kind of driver who talks, even if you turn your face to the window. The 12 o'clock hissed up like a smoked-out animal and opened on silence. Same driver. The man with solitaire eyes. The bus number on the front was different. These machines swap skins, but some things feel like they have the same bones. I stepped on. The card reader chirped the curse of acceptance. The driver nodded once, infinitesimal. I sat closer to the front than last time, kid energy, like if I stayed near where the grown-ups sat, it would be fine. I told myself I would not look. I would watch the city. I would count the stops requested and the ads for the vocational school and my own breath. For 3 blocks, I did. On the 4th, my eyes went up. Full again. Different arrangement, not the same shapes, I swear. A man in a reflective vest, 2 rows back in the mirror, had his hands folded and his chin down like he was counting. A little kid with a knit hat had her head against where a window would be, and her hair didn't quite know whether to sit on the seat or pass through it. A woman with a tote bag held it like a formal portrait. I turned fast, like a magician would catch himself. Empty. My brain experienced that dumb, slow lag where it tries to reconcile 2 pictures and chooses neither. I felt my eyes sting the way smoke stings when it's really just air and panic. "Don't stare," the driver said. Same tone as last time. Not unkind, not particularly eager to discuss it. "I'm not," I said, which of course was a lie. Lies leave the mouth without asking permission. "They come in clear when it's just you," he said. "That's why I don't like the last run." "Come in," I said, dumb. "Seats don't want to be empty forever," he said, and his hands tightened on the wheel. "Nobody does." Something about the way he said nobody folded my insides into a shape I didn't own. "What are they?" I asked, softer than I meant it. He didn't answer. Instead, he reached up and flipped his interior mic on with a thumb. I heard a little hiss in the ceiling speakers. He said, "Not for me, not for anyone I could see. Next stop, home." He didn't pull the cord. He didn't hit a button. The bus slowed to a place it shouldn't stop. Middle of a long block, no pole, no bench. The doors opened to show me a patch of sidewalk and a chain link fence and a mural I recognized and a wind I didn't. In the mirror, every head had turned toward the door. Remember that thing children are told about, how if you see a wild animal you shouldn't run? My body did the opposite. I stood. The driver said no. So softly I sat again without meaning to. The doors hissed shut. The bus pulled back into the world like a hand, returning to a pocket. I stared at the floor, where someone had ground a circle into the rubber, and suddenly was sure I knew which shoes had done it, even though I had never seen them. At home, I wrote everything down. Dates, times, bus numbers, driver names, none. Their little ID in the plastic window was turned around both nights. I texted my friend who works at transit, not a driver, admin, a person who has opinions about software and budgets. "Do any routes have a weird last run?" People say the last anything is weird, but like, officially, he sent back a string of laughing emojis because that is his first response to any single sentence text at midnight. In the morning, he wrote, "No night routes, have specials." And the 7 only goes to 12:30 on weekdays. Why I told him I thought I'd imagined something. He asked me if I'd seen a raccoon. I told him he'd be the first to know when I produced a raccoon. I slept in on my day off and dreamed about a bus mirror at the end of a hallway. In the dream, if you looked long enough, you saw yourself sitting there 3 rows back, looking up at the mirror, and the hallucination felt like a very reasonable exchange rate for sleep. I woke to the rain on the sill, exactly timed to my heartbeat. And if you think that's melodrama, I agree. It felt melodramatic to me too. The 3rd week, I did something stupid. That is, I did something I knew was stupid, which is a different category than accident. I planned my break to miss the 11:30. I told myself it was to test it, to push the luck until it snapped and showed me the tricks. It was curiosity that pretends to be bravery. The 12 o'clock arrived late, like a pet sulking. Same driver. Solitaire. Face a shade more haunted by sleeplessness. He nodded without looking at me, like people who read a room without ever learning how to look at faces, head on. I sat on the first row of the raised section, as far forward as you can, while still legally a passenger. The mirror and I had an understanding. I would look once, I would look away. We pulled away from my stop. A kid on a bike without lights nearly ate the back bumper, then thought better of it, then stomped down on his pedals with that "I'm invincible because I've decided math and steel don't apply to me" energy all city kids wear like a jacket. At the first block, I peaked, full. But the arrangement had changed in a way I will now call worse. They were not all sitting. Some stood, one hand on the loop, that casual sway you learn, bodies barely moving, the suggestion of weight, trying to find a home. In the mirror, a man in the front row across from me had his feet propped on the wheel, well like I've seen men do since I was old enough to judge men for doing that on buses. He turned his head toward me, too slowly, a second later than a head should turn if a neck is a neck. I shouldn't have been able to make detail in the mirror at that distance, but I swear the shape of his face was the shape of mine, blurred the way your face blurs on a cheap photocopier. I looked away. My mouth tasted like I'd bitten aluminum foil. "Rule 2, the driver said absently, as if he'd already told me and was bored by my poor grasp of instruction. "Don't smile at them. Don't wave. Don't try to be kind." "I wasn't," I said. "Then what's rule 1? "Don't look too long," he said. 3? "Don't ride to the end," he said. 3's the only one anyone remembers. "What happens if you ride to the end?" I asked, making sure to sound like I didn't care about the answer, in case the answer made me care too much. He sucked in a breath through his front teeth, a hiss, like a tire losing air. "I don't pick you up after that," he said. The bus slowed at a stop in a part of town where I had never seen a person get on after 11, because there is nothing there except a boarded church and a municipal garage and a tree that lost its leaves and never decided to put them back. The door opened. Outside, darkness showed me the shapes of fences and boxes stacked in a yard, with a no trespassing sign that had been ignored for so long. Even the letters looked tired. In the mirror, 3 full rows stood. I felt it, not a breeze, not weight, a changed pressure in the space where your body knows someone is close. The driver said, sharp for the first time, "Eyes front," and I obeyed because when a night worker with a job like his tells you something in that tone, your body, if it wants to live, becomes a good dog. We rode. The heater kicked out a smell like old pennies for half a block and then gave up. Somewhere toward the river, an argument bloomed on the sidewalk and then turned into 2 men laughing because they had remembered they were friends. On the bridge, the bus hesitated in that way heavy things do when the wind is playing with them. In the mirror, every head tilted the same degree to the left and then straightened. I can't explain why that scared me more than anything else. Maybe something about choreography, about a shared will. As we came off the bridge, the driver said to the bus at large, 2 more. And I have never felt more addressed by a public announcement in my life. I pressed the cord at my stop. The ding dinged. The bus slowed. The doors opened on a world that was, thank God, arranged the way I'd left it earlier. I stood. The driver held up a hand, one finger raised, not to me, but toward the mirror like he was telling a classroom to wait. I looked up reflexively just once, and the mirror was full of faces with their mouths open, not in a silent scream like a cheap horror effect, but in an O of surprise too wide to be real. The driver swiped his palm along the underside of the mirror. It changed. I don't mean the angle, I mean the mirror itself. The surface went dull for a heartbeat, as if someone had breathed on it and then blew the fog away at the exact same time from both sides. And when it cleared, it reflected only what the back of the bus actually contained. Hard seats, a discarded receipt, a single dry leaf that must have entered the bus on someone's coat hours before and decided to make a night of it. I stepped down. I turned back to say thanks, to ask a question that would have been the wrong one, to leave a joke that would have been worse than silence. The driver, his ID, still turned around, tapped the mirror once with his knuckle, like a man tapping a fish tank, to remind the fish he exists. He said, not unkind, "Don't make me see you again." I slept fine that night and woke up sick. You know the kind, a heaviness that starts in the shoulders and convinces your knees, and by noon, you've convinced yourself only broth exists. I called off. I watched videos that pretended to be about cooking and were actually about other people's kitchens. Every bus sign outside made me look at the window. I lasted 2 days before I broke my own agreement with myself and texted my transit friend again. "Do our buses have mirrors with a switch?" He replied with a photo of a manual with a finger pointing at a line. Rear view passenger mirror, adjustable for angle and dimming, anti-glare. Then, like a car mirror, LL. Then, why? I said, no reason, which is the declaration of a person lying poorly. A minute later, he wrote, "You okay?" And I wrote, "Yep," and went to the corner store to buy candy like a child. A week later, it was snow. The city is uglier and prettier in snow, depending on your mood. I was in a mood. I missed the 11:30 because you miss things when the world sets itself to white noise. 2 people were at the stop when the 12 o'clock arrived. A woman with a backpack and a guy with paint on his hands and a hoodie pretending very hard. They got on with me and sat. The driver was not solitaire, he was the humming kid again. I felt my muscles teach themselves to be disappointed. As we pulled away, Humming Kid hit a patch and the bus's back end did a slow goose of the lane. We recovered. He laughed out loud in that way you do when the day makes a joke that won't be funny later. I looked at the mirror. It showed us mostly. The woman with the backpack, paint hands, me. It also showed a 4th row where a 5th row should be. The people in that row were not there in the seats when I kept my eyes down like a law, but in the mirror they were. 3 shapes, blurred, less blurred, more intent. The woman with the backpack glanced up quickly like she thought she'd felt a presence. She didn't meet my eyes. She looked down and then up again. Her mouth moved. I saw the whisper of what the form and then go away. The humming kid glanced at the mirror, at her, at the road. He didn't speak. In the glass, one of the knot people moved its hand to pull the stop cord that wasn't there. The bell didn't ding. I didn't breathe. The bus slowed at the next stop anyway, even though nobody had pulled the cord, the way buses do sometimes when they know someone will need it. Outside, snow made everything a theater set. The door opened. A shape of coat stood on the curb in the mirror, and then passed through the 1st row seat, and then the mirror decided not to describe that part anymore. The woman with the backpack stood up, then sat, then stood again. Her eyes flicked left and right, cat eyes. The humming kid said as calmly as a YouTube tutorial, "Folks, if you don't have to get off here, don't." His voice had a new layer of something. Habit, maybe. Backpack Saturday. The door closed. The bus pulled in. My hands found my knees and put pressure on them like they were trying to make an indent. Paint Hands said, very softly, "This route is cursed." And nobody laughed at him for it. I didn't get off at my stop. I don't have a good reason. I think I wanted to see how long I could ride without becoming a rule. The world outside was my neighborhood in the wrong font. A shop I knew had the wrong sign. A house had a light on. That had been off every night I'd passed for a year. Tiny things. If you flip a coin and call it heads, you don't need the coin to prove anything to you. You just need a reason to keep calling the same side. We made 2 more stops. 3 people got on. The bus was now half full in seats and entirely full in the mirror. Humming Kid did not make any announcement except the one his shoulders knew how to make. They rose a little and then settled, and he glanced at the mirror and then back at the road. At the foot of the hill where I live, something changed. The bus gave that full-body shudder old buses give when they decide to turn regardless of whether the road agrees. Humming Kid did not turn the wheel. The wheel turned. The bus drifted left through an intersection where no one expected a bus to be. We went down a street that used to exist and now was fenced. We did not hit the fence. We passed through it like it was a suggestion. "I'm getting off," Backpack said, then didn't. The bus rolled into a yard I had never seen as a yard, concrete with oil flowers and a smell of rubber and stale coffee. A depot. Old. No one home. The doors opened on a room that felt like air and heat and work crave. On one wall, a timetable from a decade ago. Last departure listed for the 7 at 12 a.m., noted as night loop, short turn. Handwritten in the corner in grease pencil, no end. The mirror held us. In it, the empty rows were full. In it, a man in a reflective vest who was not Paint Hands and not me and not alive, stared at his hands and then at the door and then at me. The Humming Kid said, as if to himself, "Rule 3, and flipped the mirror to dim. It became a sheet of flat dark. The room outside the door smelled like when you open an old coat and the winter before falls on your shoes. The bus shut the doors, rolled backward, slid back into the street that is fenced. The fence made the sound chain link makes when a kid drags a stick along it, which is to say we heard nothing because that sound happened years ago. The wheel straightened. The world righted itself. The Humming Kid's shoulders went down to their original height. Nobody spoke. The bell dinged from the middle of the bus. Without a hand moving, the bus stopped and 3 no ones got off in the mirror. And 3 of us got off in the night like people who didn't realize their stop had arrived. I walked home at an angle, like I was still convincing some muscle groups that they weren't on a bus. At my door, I felt like apologizing to the knob. Inside, I turned every light on with a frantic efficiency and then turned them off again, ashamed of what I was trying to light up. I stopped riding for a week. I lied to my manager about a bike I didn't have. I Ubered and winced at the number. I walked in the cold until my teeth hurt the way knuckles hurt after punching a wall. And no, I haven't punched a wall in years. You grow out of some moods. On a Thursday, the worst day, not Friday with its promise, not Monday with its honesty, I gave in. I told myself it would be early the 10:45. The earlier bus was safe. It had to be. The city was still properly wearing its face. The driver was a woman with hair in a bun, so tight it made me straighten my posture. The mirror showed us, and only us. I exhaled into a scarf and felt silly and alive. I changed at the transfer with the happy shuffle of a sinner who has found a small church. On the 7th, I made the 11:30. The driver was solitaire, same hands on the wheel, same eyes, a new bandage on one knuckle, paper white. I tapped my card. He looked at me and then at the mirror and then at me. He didn't smile. I don't think he knows what that looks like on his face. "Rule 4, he said, almost conversational, like we were catching up, like coworkers. Don't ask them questions in your head. I said I hadn't. Lie, in the bathroom, in bed, on my walk, I had asked the following: what are you? Are you hurt? Do you need help? Why me? Were you on this bus once? Are you me later? If I got off in the dark, would I feel ground under my feet? Would I fall? Would I land? I had asked over and over the question you cannot help asking in any story you recognize too late. Do you want me? They can hear you, he said. It's not language. It's angles. Angles, I repeated, a fool with a new vocabulary word. Of the head, he said, the tilt, where you set your eyes, how your mouth decides a shape. If you talk to them with your face, they'll try talk back. How do you know all this? I asked. He didn't answer. His knuckles were white and then less white. The bus gave a sigh. We crossed the river. The wind introduced itself again. Polite as a person who wants something from you. At the far edge of the bridge, the mirror showed me something it hadn't before. Me. Not my face. My head from behind, the way the driver sees. The part of me I never see unless a friend takes a video of me fumbling with a backpack buckle. The back of my head in the mirror was tilted the way it tilts when I'm listening hard. The person in my seat in the mirror moved a hand and pressed the cord. I did not move my hand. The bell dinged. The driver did not slow. End, he said to the empty bus, and I swear the bus heard him. I don't think it wants to be empty, the machine, I mean. It has a memory. Anything that carries this many bodies must. Think about your couch, how it knows your weight. Think about your phone, how it knows the curve of your hand. I think a bus knows where people are supposed to be and tries to fill those shapes when the city gets thin. When I got off that night, the city properly in place, the light at my corner properly the wrong yellow, I told myself I was done. Not because I was brave, but because I was small and wanted to stay that way. I would be a person who leaves the party early and misses the drama. I would be a person who walks. Rule 5, I tell myself now, when I can't sleep. When a routine asks you to become a story, leave the routine. I made it 3 weeks. 3 weeks of rides that were normal, mostly because I rearranged my life to be home before the bus turned into whatever it turns into. I started to forget. That is, I started to file it under weird things, the way we file a smell or a noise or a dream that felt like a memory in the wrong clothes. Then I saw one of them off the bus. I don't mean a face on a sidewalk. I don't mean I freaked myself at a cafe window reflection. I mean I was in my kitchen at 2 making toast I didn't need. The street outside went quiet the way streets do when the snowplow has finally passed enough times to make the road feel like a decision. I glanced at my microwave clock because that's what you do instead of thinking. 2:14, it said, like a joke from an earlier life. The bus hissed outside. I went to the window like a neighbor. The 7th idled under the streetlight. The driver was not visible in the glare. Inside, the seats were empty. In the glass of my window, reflected, the mirror on the bus showed me rows of faces, and in the middle row, right window side, a woman with a tote bag held to her chest stared out. In the bus window itself, at that spot, there was nothing but the reflected building across the street and my dumb face looking. In the bus mirror reflected in my window, tote bag woman. She turned her head an angle. I swear I recognized the curve of cheek from the second night, the woman whose mouth had formed a silent, what the... She'd become an angle in a mirror, and then a suggestion in my window. She lifted her hand and pressed a finger against the air like people do in moving cars when they want to touch a raindrop. My microwave said 2:15. The bus breathed and pulled away. The mirror in my window tilted with it and became a square of different light, and then passed beyond where any of my geometry could see it. I scrubbed my toast from the sink because I wasn't hungry anymore. I didn't ride after that. I wanted very much not to be a person the bus knew. I walked. I bought a used bike and gave my shins an education. I left work early or later, depending on how the night felt. People asked if I was okay because I started arriving with a look on my face like I'd remembered something I didn't want to hold. A month later, the Transit Authority put out a press release that would have made me laugh any other year. New safety protocols for late-night riders. Announcements about cameras, we have them. Lighting, worse now than before. And driver support. It was a list that doesn't change anything really, but it makes people feel like rules exist in the same world as the things they want to rule. The night after the press release, my friend from Transit texted me a photo blurred so much it might as well have been abstract. "You'll love this," he wrote. The photo was of a monitor bank, night vision green, rows of seats, the rear view mirror from the perspective of the camera. In it, the bus was empty. In the rear view, full. Then he wrote, "Someone's messing with me," and I wrote back a lie about ghost overlays. And he wrote, "I hate you," and I put the phone down and breathed like a liar. I have not seen the solitaire driver again. I do sometimes see the humming kid. He smiles at me like we share a secret I don't want to keep. I didn't ride for months. And then last week, because winter makes all the stupid in me itch, I missed the 11:30 without meaning to. Work ran late. The walk to the stop felt predestined. The 12 pulled in, snow tattooing its roof. The driver was new to me, shoulders still in their first winter. Cap low, eyes high. I told myself the rules out loud as I stepped in. "Don't look," I said. "And what?" he asked. "Just to myself," I lied, and I sat forward. I stared at the fare box like it was a work of art. The bus moved. I did not look up. At the bridge, the wind poked the bus with a finger. At the far end, my body betrayed me. I looked. In the mirror, full, but not strangers, or not only. Row 3, window side, tote bag, woman. Row 5, aisle, reflective vest man. Back corner, knit cap kid. And row 2, aisle, me. Not the back of my head this time. My face tilted in a way that makes anyone who knows me tell me to stop wrinkling my forehead. My face looking up at the mirror with soft eyes like I'm trying to understand someone at a party over the music. My mouth parted like I was about to ask a question I never get to. I looked away, hot with shame, like I'd walked in on someone in a bathroom. The driver said nothing. The bus slowed at my stop. The doors opened on the familiar wrongness of a night you own. I stood. "Hey," the driver said, and I turned back because manners are still in me somewhere, and my mother would be proud or at least less disappointed. He tapped his knuckle against the underside of the mirror, a habit he must have learned from the same place solitaire learned. And the mirror went flat, then true. The seats were empty again. My face was mine, and mine only. "Rules," he said, like he'd been taught to recite, and then smiled, not unkind. "You already know 'em." I stepped down. The doors closed. The bus pulled away. At my door, with my keys, with the dumb new habit I have of listening for a bus several blocks away as if the bus is a friend I hope will pass my house, I thought about the night loop on the grease board in the dead depot and the words "no end," and laughed, once short, at my own brain, because of course there isn't an end. That's why we like roots. The end is just the place you turn around and pretend yesterday didn't happen the same way. Here are the only things I can offer you if you are someone who rides when the city is tired and you like to sit where it's easy to watch the door. If the bus is empty and the driver looks like the day has chewed and decided to swallow but hasn't, don't look at the mirror for long. Don't smile at the shapes. Don't wave or nod or press your mouth into a polite line like you do at neighbors you don't know. Don't ask questions with your face. If you pull the cord and the doors open on a place with no edges, sit back down. If you feel the pressure of a person sitting near you when the seat is empty, be impolite. Cross your arms. Pretend you don't notice. Don't ride the last run if you don't have to. If you have to, get off before the river. If you miss your stop because your eyes stayed where they should, forgive yourself. If you see your own head in the mirror and it moves wrong, now you know not to make a shape with your mouth they can answer. And if you live near me and you hear the bus exhale under your window, you around 2:14, like it has settled and decided to become another kind of machine for a minute, turn the radio up or open the fridge or go to the sink and run the tap. Flood the room with some other hum. Don't go to the window. Don't look for the mirror through the glass. It will be there if you look. It always is. I still don't drive. I've told myself this story means I should learn. And then I picture a rear view that isn't fixed to the bus. And I think maybe mirrors aren't the problem. Maybe I am. So I walk when I can. I take earlier buses. I know the names of 2 drivers now and pretend I don't. I sit behind the yellow line and watch my hands and count stops and do not ask a single thing. People ask me when they get the boiled down version of this, which is to say, weird night on the 7, which is all I will say to acquaintances forever, if I think they're ghosts. I don't have a word. None of mine fit. Seats being unwilling to be empty long. Spaces practicing how to be filled. Our routines trying to keep their shapes when the city takes too big a breath. That's the best I can do. Ghost is a coat too fancy for what this is. Yeah, it's just a bus. It's just a mirror. But if you sit under it at the wrong hour, it will want to show you a fuller world. It will want your help making it. And if you feel yourself wanting to help, if you feel your face begin to make a shape, your mouth thinks is kind. Look down. Watch your knees. Count to the next stop. When the doors open somewhere, you recognize, get off. And if someone you can't see follows you in the window, don't do the math. Let it go. Don't become a seat. Don't ride to the end. Thanks for listening. I really enjoyed putting this story together for you. If you liked it, hit that like button, subscribe for more stories, and share it with someone who's into this kind of stuff. See you next time.